Welcome to the Bow Disciples channel. This video is going to be pretty cool. We're going to go over my out-of-state bucks. I've had 8 out-of-state deer tags, and I've been fortunate enough to punch all 8 of those tags, 6 with a bow, 2 with the rifle. So we're going to go through this in chronological order, and we're going to start with my 2006 Kaibab National Forest buck. I got this guy with a 308 at a little under 100 yards, and this buck right here is really what I was already hooked. I always had loved antlers and deer back when my parents would buy me Monster Bucks VHS tapes for Christmas and my birthday as a little tiny kid. And growing up in San Diego County, all the bucks that I had hunted were really small. It's just the genetics we have out here. So to draw this tag and get this buck, to me, he was an absolute giant, and it forever hooked me on hunting mule deer. Next up, we have my 2013 Kaibab National Forest buck. I got this guy with a 30-06 at about 80 yards and made an excellent shot. He didn't go anywhere. This buck, they said at the check station, was the oldest buck that had been taken that entire season. They estimated he was between 7 and 8 years old. Just absolute beautiful 3x4, tons of mass and really tall. And this right here was like my first really good buck, so I was super excited. And yeah, that's my 2013 Kaibab buck, and Lyons and O'Haver did an excellent job on the taxidermy work. Next up, we have my 2014 New Mexico buck. This was, of course, with a bow. All the rest of these are archery. He's a scoreable 10-pointer with 5-inch brow tines, and I always joke around and say this is my whitetail buck, or my best whitetail. I've never harvested a whitetail, but he has so much characteristic of a whitetail. Tons of mass, huge brow tines, the little sticker points, all that stuff. He's an awesome buck. Hunted really hard this season. I got this buck on day 17. But when you get a buck this cool with this much character, it's definitely worth the effort. Next up, we have my 2015 New Mexico buck. As you can see, not quite as big as his New Mexico predecessor, but at the end of the day, my goal was to put meat in the freezer and fill my tag, and I had hunted hard the whole season, and the second to last day, I filled my tag on this great buck, and he was really good eating, so stoked to have this little guy. Next up, we have my 2016 Arizona non-permit over-the-counter mule deer. As you can see, just a picture-perfect, symmetrical, wide 4x4, awesome buck. And again, Lyons and O'Haver did an excellent job on the taxidermy work. Stoked to have this buck. Next up, we have my 2017 non-permit Arizona over-the-counter archery tag deer. This buck was in velvet when I shot him in September. However, I stripped it for the European mount. Again, he kind of has that whitetail look, long main beam. He's, scoreable 9-pointer, cool buck. And this is actually one of the bucks I'm most proud of. I went out there on a bonsai solo trip with the Chevy Duramax in the camper shell and camped on my own. It was about 100 degrees every day. There was monsoons every day. Didn't see a ton of deer this trip, but on the 3rd or 4th day, I glassed this buck up by himself. I waited about 7 hours till the wind picked up, went ahead and made my move and made a perfect shot at 24 yards and put this buck down. Next up, the Bow Disciples, longtime subscribers will know this buck. Got this buck in September of 2018 on the YouTube channel, and just a sweet buck. I'd glassed him up a few days prior. I love this little sticker point in the center's fork. Just a lot of character, and it was cool to see this buck a few days prior and then connect and make it happen on a good evening hunt. So if you have not, go check out those videos on the YouTube channel. It was a great trip with my buddy Nick. We did all sorts of fun, crazy stuff, got into deer, and even drove across the flash flood in the Subaru, so go check out those videos. Last but definitely not least, we have the now famous Houdini buck. Hunted this buck really hard. This is my January 2019 over-the-counter non-permit mule deer in Arizona. This buck has tons of mass, obviously super non-typical on the left side. I was immediately drawn to him the second I glassed him up, and this right antler alone, scoreable 6 points on the left, scores 79 inches on just the right antler alone. So if he had matched it on the left and had decent width, this guy would have scored really well. So I don't care too much about that. I care about how cool he is, and I've always loved non-typical weird bucks, so super, super stoked to get this buck. We hunted him really hard, and there's a super cool story behind him. So if you have not seen that video, go on the YouTube channel, watch the video where I get the Houdini buck, and yeah, hear the story. So that wraps up my video on my out-of-state bucks. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support we've been getting. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.